You're listening to the live candidates forum from the Kandiyohi County Fair with the Wilmer Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, and KWLM.
Good morning to you. J.P. Cola here at the Kandiyohi County Fair. No rain yet, and I don't think we're going to have any. We're going to hold off. Welcome to the forum at the fair. I'm J.P. Cola. This forum being brought to you by Lakeland Broadcasting, the League of Women Voters, and the Wilmer Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. We're going to have 4 forums this morning, and we're going to lead things off with the forum for the candidates for House District 17B, Mary Sawatsky and Dave Baker. Dave, a Republican. Mary is a DFLer, and the League of Women Voters keeping time for us. Each candidate will have 1 minute to give an introductory comment, and then a 1 minute outro comment at the very end, and then 90 seconds to answer each question. And we drew straws, and Dave drew the first, and so he will be giving the first introductory comment. So, without further ado, Representative Dave Baker. Dave?
Thank you, JP, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here again at the Kandiyohi County Fair. For those of you who do not know me, I am Dave Baker. I am a small business guy, lived in the area here for about 25, 26 years, and have 3 children, and love being your state representative. I had the privilege to serve as your state rep for the last 2 years, wrapping this up, and I learned an awful lot. Would love to have the opportunity to go back and return and keep working on some of the things that are really important to our area. Like a lot of legislators, I don't like the process in a lot of ways, but we have to work together to get a lot of things done. And because of that foundation I started with, I want to go back and do some more good things. So thanks again for having me. I want to also thank the League and also thank the Wilmer Chamber for sponsoring this morning.
All right, thank you, Dave. Now, Mary Sawatsky.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for listening to our forum this morning. And I wish all of you that are working hard in your basements and in your homes more time in the day that you can get that done. And I know that you're cramming a lot of work into a few hours and going to work. So my heart goes out to you. And I also want to thank the League and the Chamber for presenting today and helping us out. I'm running for the House of Representatives because I like making good policy, which helps Minnesota work for all people. And good policy takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes working together to get things done. The chaos at the end of these past 2 years and the $1.1 billion worth of mistakes made are not acceptable. And a special session is needed for the Minnesota and for Kandiyohi County, our farmers and our seniors and our families. I'm a teacher of over 31 years in the Wilmer Public School systems, and I know when the school year ends and when the school year begins and when it ends. And I don't get a special session with my kids.
All right, thank you, Mary. And time for our questions, which have been compiled by both ourselves in the newsroom and the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters. We're on the Heritage Square stage here at the Kandiyohi County Fairgrounds. So if you want to come, if you're on the fairgrounds, come on out and you can watch us live. And Mary, we'll ask you the question first. The 2016 legislative session ended without a tax bill, bonding bill, or transportation bill being passed. Now there are discussions about a special session. What needs to be done to get these bills passed, or are they necessary, Mary?
Well, yes, we do need a special session for Kandiyohi County and for all of Minnesota. It's unfortunate that our legislature pushed off the work until the last night of session and didn't finish its job. When I've been talking to people at the doors, they are tired of the excuses and wish our legislators would just work together. And as I said, I'm a teacher. I start the year, I end the year, and I don't get extra time with my students. And I know that our kids need that special session to get the work done for them. There are priorities for Minnesota in this legislation, and it's been stalled by gridlock. The tax relief for farmers are needed for our families and our seniors. Bonding bill will put Minnesota to work and improve our infrastructure and our aging facilities. And as for transportation, we need to find a way to move forward. And a comprehensive long-term transportation package is needed. It's unfortunate that getting a real long-term transportation bill wasn't finished, and it's not even being discussed at this point. So a long-term transportation bill will ensure that we can find a way to finish Highway 23.
Thank you, Mary. Now, Dave, I'll ask you the question again. The 2016 legislative session ended without a tax bill, bonding bill, or transportation bill being passed. Now, discussions about a special session. What needs to be done to get these bills passed, or are they necessary, Dave?
Absolutely, they're necessary. And I guess I know that there's 201 legislators that went home in May that was just as disappointed as I was. To work so hard for those 12 to 13 weeks that we were down there to get bills ready and drafted and in the final bill, and to see things sort of collapse at the last minute is not acceptable. We shouldn't be happy about that. But I will tell you, with 201 legislators, we count on our head coach, I guess, if you will, the governor, to kind of help us land the airplane to get this thing done right, because there's a lot of really good things in those bills. The tax bill of 89% of the Senate and the House passed this bill. The governor chose to pocket veto this, and all it needed to do was get a letter to the revisor's office, and it could have been fixed. So that's disappointing that tax relief didn't happen. But we stand ready to come back. As of right now, the governor and the speaker and others are meeting right now in St. Paul to see if we can get back to work. I've urged the speaker to do this. I want to get back quickly. I'll make the time to go back because we have Highway 23 and the bonding bill ready to go for the first 4-lane. We've got a bike trail from New London to Sibley that's in the bonding bill, and we've got a Kid State Hospital that's in the bonding bill. If we get this thing passed, we have a lot to win. So I'm going to continue to work hard for that, and I appreciate the work that all of us are doing to try to get this thing done.
All right, thank you, Dave. And now the next question, we'll ask you, Dave, first. I've been told that, most of the bills and in the legislature do pass with bipartisan support, but there seems to be gridlock when it comes to some of the major bills. What do you think needs to be done to end gridlock at the Capitol?
Gridlock is a term that we've all heard. I think when we think of gridlock, too, it's especially bad on the national scene. I will tell you this as a first-time legislator, that you have to respect everybody that's at the legislature. They have worked really hard to get there. I don't care what letter is behind their name, whether it's a D or an R. Everybody that's there needs to be respected and listened to. If you have the members of the legislature there to do that, a lot will get done. Now remember, 201 legislators is a lot to manage. You've got folks all around the state of Minnesota fighting for what they need in their district. So gridlock is something you're going to have when you also have government that has divided government, shared government, Republicans, Democrats that have to get along in order for things to move ahead is going to happen. It's going to get bumpy sometimes. But like I said earlier, we need to make sure that the chaos and the rhetoric that is talked about in the press becomes respectable and understood, so that we are not, just taking the headlines and the negative comments, but there is a lot of good things that are getting done. So again, as I've learned this first term, I'm going to work hard to make sure that anything that I'm exposed to, gridlock is minimized. I'm going to respect everybody that's there. But because I believe that this process is important, it's not perfect, but it's important to have shared government to make sure that the best for Minnesota is delivered.
All right, thank you, Dave. And Mary, what do you think needs to be done to eliminate or reduce gridlock?
First, we need legislators who will put their districts first ahead of their political parties. There's way too much concentration among the leaders of both parties. I agreed. When decisions are made by a few people behind closed doors, that doesn't help with the gridlock or the communication between all the legislators in the legislature. We do better work when the legislature on the issues are vetted out in the open, and where public have the input and the power that's shared across legislators in both parties. And so we need legislators who are working on the behalf of the constituents, not their political parties. Another way that we can really get rid of and stopping this gridlock and the last minute decision making at the 11th hour or at 11:45 p.m. is getting money out of our politics. And we all know we've been through a dirty campaign in the last election, and we know that there's going to be a lot of information coming to you through all forms of communication in this next one, and that sure casts a shadow over the good work that we can do for Minnesota. And I really believe that we want to, if we want to minimize this gridlock, that we will bind together and say we need this big money and dark money out of politics and create good policy that works for all Minnesotans.
All right, thank you, Mary. Next question, we'll ask Mary first. Mary, describe your position on health care and MNsure. What changes, if any, need to be made? Mary?
Well, there's no question. The rollout of MNsure, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, had some bumpy roads in the past. And as anything as large as that is, we were quite expecting not to have a fluid program. But what we do need is to work together to reduce the cost of health care and to improve our choices for health care for all Minnesotans. Our focus on improving MNsure is needed, and we need to have forward thinking with that. And not going back to the days where the insurance companies can drop your coverage just because you're sick. And so we need to improve MNsure for all Minnesotans, but we also have to worry about those other 90% of Minnesotans who receive their health care in the private market. Many Minnesotans struggle in some way with the cost of health care. And so we need to look out for those costs because they favor the powerful prescription companies and the insurance companies over our Minnesota families. So I believe complaining about MNsure is not going to get us anywhere. I think we need to get together and again make improvements for and reforms for MNsure, and that will help with reducing our prescription costs and all those unexpected or surprising bills that we're receiving, and helping our children in the future and reducing health costs and finding the waste in it.
All right, thank you, Mary. Now, Dave Baker, describe your position on health care and MNsure. What changes, if any, need to be made, Dave?
MNsure and Obamacare is now the law of the land, whether we like it or not. We have to work on it, making it better. I think what I have learned being on the Health and Human Services Reform Committee is listening to healthcare costs, why they're going up, what's causing them to go up is really important for us to help lessen the mandates, lessen the paperwork, lessen the work that healthcare providers, our ACMCs, our Rice hospitals, their workload behind the scenes is enormous. And that all gets put onto the private healthcare payers. Again, Blue Cross Blue Shield, if you know, just is now deciding not to have any individual plans in Minnesota. That is a huge, huge decision for us. So I'm committed to working on this thing. In the tax bill, for example, that did not pass, that's sitting there, ready to pass, I hope. The Minnesota has a tax on our health care plans. And we made a vote, it's in the tax bill, approved by both Democrats and Republicans, that tax will be cut in half. So that's part of it. We also need more transparency when it comes to what does it cost to have a knee replacement? What does it cost to, we do this when we get our car repaired, but we need to have more transparency like that when it comes to putting your rates out there and what procedures usually cost. So it's a transformation. We have to continue to reform healthcare, but we have to lower the costs, and then we're going to start to see finally some improvements in healthcare.
You're listening to the Forums at the Fair from the Kandiyohi County Fairgrounds in Willmar. I'm News Director J.P. Kola with Representative Dave Baker and his challenger Mary Sawatsky. And Dave, next question, what is your position on party needs versus district and constituent needs? Be specific and include examples. Dave?
When I ran for the first time, I promised our voters and our citizens here that my district is what I'm here for. Every district in Minnesota has a voice in St. Paul. We have one seat, and it's an honor for me to sit there. And every time I go knocking on doors or listening to people here at the fair, I'm reminded time and time again, those couple issues that are important to that person get logged, get filed in my small little brain, I guess, but just they get recalled when I remember those issues when I'm talking to my colleagues in St. Paul. So when those are brought up, it's important for me to remember those kind of things for this district alone. So Kandiyohi County is my home. And so when it comes to the buffers, strips, or bonding bills, I'm going to remember how important it is to get the Willmar Y project done, the rail spur. We have the bonding bill happening right now. The new poultry lab is going to get open. That's important to our district, and we had to deal with the avian flu stuff. So when I'm voting, I'm always remembering, I have a red and a green button when I vote. What is good for Kandiyohi County? That is what I remember when I'm pushing those votes. every single time, because that's what I'm there for, is to represent you. And I hope that I've done a good job with that this last 2 terms, or two sessions. So I'm going to continue to do that. That's the way I want to do this, and it's an honor to serve as your voice in St. Paul.
Thank you, Dave. Now, Mary, what is your position on party needs versus district and constituent needs? And be specific and include examples.
I've always put our community first, even when it's meant some very tough votes. The best way to be an effective leader is to connect with your community, and I know that that's what I've been doing. As one of your few legislators, I voted against the marriage bill. That is a vote that I stood up to my party leaders and stood with the district that I represent. And that's what it means to be a legislator for the people and not the party. That's why I'm out door knocking every day and have those one-to-one conversations, so that I'm allowing you to tell me what's on your mind firsthand. When we're in town halls or in a large gathering, sometimes it's hard to bring up some of the tough conversations that we need to have. And that's why I spend days after days at your doors. But not only that, I had phone conversations all winter long with rural route addresses, talking to people who I would never be able to door knock. And so hearing from those folks at home on the telephone during the winter months was very helpful, with sending messages down to St. Paul each week. And I also visited all 20 townships. It took me from November of this past year to June, the first week in June, to visit all 20 townships, to hear from the grassroots democracy, to hear what your needs are. And so, when you put titles on people such as assistant majority leader, you are now a party person, and you have to have and go by your party platform. And when you're just an individual being a representative for the district of 17B, I'm looking out for the community.
All right, thank you, Mary. Next question, we'll go with Mary first. Mary, some cities and local governments are working on setting minimum wages for both private and public employers. Is this something you support, Mary?
I support local control, and I believe local leaders here in Willmar and West Central Minnesota should have the say about setting their own policies.
Thank you, Mary. Dave, same question. Some cities and local governments are working on setting minimum wages for both private and public employers. Is this something you support?
I support nothing for cities individually to make their own minimum wages. It would be a huge mess for running businesses. If you had communities like Duluth having a different wage than Minneapolis and all over Mankato and Willmar, it would just be too hard to manage. As a business owner myself, I know what it's like. I really have worked hard to create a business that I pay my employees and I treat them right with a lot of respect. I do other things for them outside of just making an hourly wage. But we do renovations, we give them some health care, we give them vacation, we give people off time for family leaves without even having a written policy necessarily. But that's what good employers, I think, do. And if people aren't doing that with their employees, then they're going to lose good employees, and they're going to have to learn the hard way, or they sometimes go out of business. So for me, having different municipalities, having different minimum wages is a huge mistake. We can't have that happen, and we'll work really hard to do that.
All right, thank you, Dave. And next question, we'll start with Dave. Broadband coverage remains very poor in many areas of District 17, both A and B. What role does the state have, if any, in improving the situation? Dave?
That's a great question, and it was one of my priorities when I went to St. Paul this year. Broadband, especially in this area here, is far below what we should have it. I worked really hard on a bill to carry the bill, actually. $35 million broadband funding bill that did pass in the supplemental budget this year, signed by the governor, and I spent a lot of time working with telco companies, with families out in the farm, with small telco companies that are actually expanding the businesses out here. But also part of this comes the fact that we have to recognize federal dollars are coming to the area too, called CAF2, Connect America funds. And it's important this year because these are new wrinkles, I guess, if you will, with $85 billion is coming to Minnesota for the next 5 years. So to have our state dollars working side by side, the federal dollars, is important for our reform and to make sure that those work side by side so we don't waste any dollars. So broadband is still a very important item, and the government needs to get that process funded to help kickstart private industry to make sure that they can expand in rural Minnesota, because folks like me with small businesses need to have good broadband, and I'll continue to work really hard on broadband. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Mary, same question. Broadband coverage remains very poor in many areas of this district. What role does the state have, if any, in improving the situation?
When the governor put into his budget $100 million back in January, February, and the Senate put in $85 million, and the House came out in their budget zero, that tells a story to the people of Kandiyohi County, which has one of the worst internet accesses in the state. After visiting all 20 townships in Kandiyohi County, every township was asked, I asked one question: how's your broadband? Terrible, awful. Can't use those words in public, in a public meeting. It doesn't take long to get the message. Now, government's not going to solve it's not going to be the whole solution to the problem. But phone companies, internet companies, large and small companies, and government need to grind this thing out. Government can't do it alone. They're not going to be the solution, but it can be part of the solution. Minnesota is falling behind. We're leaving our businesses behind. We're leaving our students behind, our high school students, our elementary students, our college students, folks with medical devices. In fact, a woman just called me last week. I'd been at her door, and she said, hey, Mary, I remembered what I collected my thoughts, and I know what I have to say to you. And I have a medical device that I have to call in or report in through the internet to St. Cloud every day. Sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 resends to get it done. Our medical facilities depend on broadband. I am all for working toward better broadband in Kandiyohi County.
All right, getting down near the bottom of the hour, so we'll give each of you a chance, 1 minute, to give any final comments that you'd like today.
The last question.
And we'll start with Mary.
It's been a pleasure being here today, and it has been in 2013-14 when I represented this district. It was a wonderful 2 years where we were making progress for Minnesota and for Kandiyohi County. I was a representative that got out to your small businesses, to your farms, to meetings, to social groups. I am out and about, and I really appreciate getting to know all of you, and here at the fair, the overwhelming support and encouragement and thanking me for running again. We all know that this is going to be the last 89 days, I believe, of the election going to be tough. And I am up for it, and I am just looking forward to representing the people of Kandiyohi County and Minnesota, and I miss St. Paul, but I love Kandiyohi County.
All right, thank you, Mary. And Dave Baker, final comments.
Thank you, JP, and again, everybody for being here today. It's been an honor to serve the first term. As a small business person, I've got a lot of things that I work on and keep the balls up in the air, but I think I'm actually a good legislator. And I think there's a difference between a good campaigner and a good legislator. I think people in legislation and in leadership, it does make a difference. I'm quite honored, in fact, to be asked by my peers to be one of the assistant majority leaders. It's an honor to serve as one of the leaders there. I don't always agree with my party as well, but it's important to be able to put your foot down when you need to. So I'm proud to do that. I love to be able to continue my work in St. Paul. I learn a lot, and I'm a better restaurant operator after 15 years than I was after the first year. I think I will get better at this job, and I'm still learning a lot. I love listening to our folks here in Kandiyohi County. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be your representative, and I would love to be hired again to go back to St. Paul. Thank you so much.
All right, District 17B, Representative Dave Baker and challenger Mary Sawatsky. And by the way, this election coming up in November is a rematch of the race that took place 2 years ago. Mary was defeated by Dave at that time, and now she's hoping to return the favor, I guess. And so that's also the next race coming up, 17A, is also a rematch from 2 years ago. Tim Miller and Andrew Falk, and we'll be having them on right after we take a little break. This is a Forum at the Fair here on KWLM, News Talk 1340 and 96.3 FM.